Hi there, this is Maneesh Vijaya from PM Pulse, and we bring to you yet another episode of PM Ninja video series. In this particular episode of Ninja video series, we are going to talk about residual risks and secondary risk. A lot of people have major misunderstandings about these two terms, so keep watching this video and you will understand these two terms and the difference between the two very clearly. Keep watching. Needless to say that when we talk about residual risks or secondary risk, we are talking about risk management. What is residual risk and what is secondary risk? Usually, you will engage with these two terms when you are in the process of creating responses for the risk. In terms of PMP certification, when you are in the process, plan risk responses. When you are in that process, you will actually have to engage with these two terms. So what are residual risks and what are secondary risks? Okay, I'll start with the easy one first. Secondary risk. When you create a response for a risk, one of the critical risks, some of the high priority risks, when you make a response to it, that response actually generates a brand new risk. That's called a secondary risk. I think an example will actually make you understand it better. You see, I was trying to outsource a particular part of the project to a jobber, to an outside vendor, because I found there was a lot of technical risk connected to my organization if we were to do that particular work. We do not have the exact skill set, and if we did it, it'll be, there was a danger that we'll not meet the quality parameters for that piece of highly technical work, and that we might mess it up. So how do we respond to this risk? Well, simple. Outsource it to somebody who really knows how to do this. So I outsourced to Mr. ABC, and when we outsource it to him, and that's because he's technically, that company is technically amazing, and they get jobs from all over the planet for this kind of work. So when we outsource to him, this is the response for a high priority risk that there is a very big technical challenge with us doing that particular piece of work, so we outsource it. So this outsource was a response to a high priority risk. But because that gentleman, that particular organization or that vendor is so popular around the planet because of the kind of work they do, they are flooded with too much of work. So because I've outsourced, because of this response, a new risk is born. And that risk is they might delay it because they are overbooked with work. They may not take my work seriously in terms of time, and they may delay it. So my project may get delayed because of the response for that primary risk, right? So when your response generates another risk, that is called a secondary risk. And of course, you will have to go through that entire rigmarole of prioritization to figure out whether this secondary risk also needs any kind of response or not. So that is the meaning of the term secondary risk. That's the easy part. I've also seen that lots of people misunderstand residual risk. They just kind of think that when some risk is not covered properly or something like that, so they're very fuzzy about this whole concept. Unfortunately, the books and the Udemy kind of courses don't actually explain this anyway, right? Everybody's trying to cut corners in terms of pricing and all that. So I'll not go down that path, but that's a problem. That's a huge problem. This should not happen in the sphere of knowledge. It should be very clear. So when we talk about residual risk, this is what it means. And I'll actually explain to you directly with an example so that you will always remember exactly what is residual risk. Let's say I have a car and I like to roam around. I go for really long drives, right? I've crisscrossed India, literally. Yeah. Last year itself, I went through the width of India, covered 6,300 kilometers, solo driving. But there's a very big chance that I meet with an accident because when you drive, you get all kinds of drivers. You've got these heavy, what I call vehicles, road transportation vehicles, may not be well maintained, and they kind of crash into me. Now I have an insurance, right? The reason I have an insurance because if I meet with an accident because of my fault or somebody else's fault, I should have enough money to make sure that I have to fight all those cases and take care of my hospitalization and all those kind of expenses, or rebuilding of my car and those kind of things, or buy a new one if this car becomes total. So I have an insurance. I have a very comprehensive insurance, and it's going to pay me tons of money if something happens to me. That's a response that I took, which is called transfer. I transferred this risk to an insurance company. But is it a pure transfer? Not true. If I actually meet with an accident, I would have bruises all over my body, right? I'll be lucky to be alive. I'll probably have get a broken leg or a broken arm. My neck would be, put in a support, so that I don't hurt my spine, or those kind of things would happen. Now, the insurance is going to pay for all of this, but it does not take care of the pain and the suffering that I would go through. Now, that is called the residual risk. When the response to a risk does not cover every portion to it, there'll be still something that is left that is going to create damage to you in some way or the other, because the residual is usually thought of only from a negative aspect, not from an opportunity. So when you create a response to a threat and you're not able to take care of it completely, there will be some portion that will actually affect you. That part is called residual risk. So whenever you are in doubt, always think about the two examples that I gave. When I outsourced it to somebody and that response actually generated another risk, that is called the secondary risk. And whenever you're in doubt about this concept of residual risk, remember that what if I met with an accident and the suffering that I'm going to go through cannot be compensated by anybody else. And that's residual. I hope this clarifies these two concepts completely without any doubt. This is Maneesh Vijaya from PM Pulse, and you were watching one of the power-packed episodes from PM Ninja video series. If you like, go ahead and subscribe. And in fact, why don't you just leave a thumbs up button while you're at it? Helps us a lot. Thank you for watching, and I'm going to catch you some other time.